Welcome back to How Will It End? Today, we'll be showing you the recap of the first season of the TV show titled The Island, where selected criminals are put through a test for survival and redemption. Leave your predictions below on how this one plays out. Now, let's see how it ends. The show starts with a lady named Chase, waking up on a deserted island. As she's wondering where she is, along with a shell close to her, she finds a lady named KC, who's got a knife with her. Chase gets the knife off Casey, and shortly after, they see a guy named Cooper, who tells them there are others also on the beach. As they all wake up and meet each other, they realize they don't remember anything, including their names. Though with the labels on their shirts, they're able to get that soon enough. Aside from Chase, Casey, and Cooper, the group also has Brody, Mason, Hayden, Donovan, Taylor, Blair, and Moses. Despite just knowing themselves for only a few minutes, Casey and Chase can't stand each other, and this also prompts Chase to leave the group in search of anything else on the beach. She is joined by Brody and Donovan. However, before they get far in their search, Donovan says he's not comfortable and he'll have to return. Brody and Chase go on and soon find a waterfall, and just about all they need. However, Brody says to keep it a secret. Chase doesn't seem to get this, and just as they seem attracted to each other, they kiss. Brody tries to go further and take advantage of Chase, but she manages to escape, with Brody then playing down what happened as they go separate ways. Elsewhere, Donovan reaches the others and convinces them to join him for a swim. He's quite convincing and they agree to join him, with only Casey and Moses staying behind. Things are going pretty well during the swim until they notice a shark in the water. As they all try to escape, Donovan gets bitten and dragged down by the shark, leaving the others worried about his death. Shortly after, Brody returns and shows everyone the things he and Chase found in the places everyone woke up on the beach. He gets informed about Donovan, and not long after, Chase also shows up. She immediately descends on Brody for what he tried to do, but Brody again plays down the whole subject. Chase also mentions that they found a waterfall in shelter, but Brody decided not to tell them. Brody again defends himself, and just as they all seem to have different opinions about him, Chase gets to know of what happened to Donovan, and this gets her worried. That night, during her sleep, Chase has a nightmare where she kills a woman. In the morning, while taking a walk, she finds Donovan barely alive and alerts the others, with Blair mostly helping as she seems to know something about medicine. Later that day, Chase sees Hayden and Mason counting steps on the beach, and after she approaches them, they share their findings with everyone, saying the distance between the points each person woke up on the beach were the same to the next person. To prove this, they started counting the steps, and it leads to a sign which reads, "Find your way back." While the others find no meaning to this, Chase thinks it could mean something, but her idea is brushed aside. Angry at the situation, she throws her shell to the ground, and even if she doesn't know, a device with a bleeping light drops out of it. Chase takes a nap, and by the time she wakes up, she sees a boat and immediately swims over to check it. She finds 2 first aid boxes and a bag containing some stickers and bullets. She also finds a paddle which she uses to steer the boat to the beach, after which she hides it. When she eventually checks what is inside, the first one contains drugs and the other medical supplies, while the other one contains a box she doesn't know how to open. Later that day, when Casey and Brody are together, she kisses him, but he seems to take things too far as Casey is seen looking depressed later on, with Hayden suspecting and also having to console her. Back with the others, Donovan is already recovering slowly, and Chase gets Cooper to follow her to explore what they can find. During this tour, they find an abandoned hotel, and when they get back to the beach, they inform the others. Though a fight breaks out between Brody and Cooper, as Brody seems to want to be in control. Later that day, Chase finds the device from the shell she broke, and it turns out to be the key that opens up the other box she picked up from the boat. Inside, she finds a gun, but hides it. That night, when a storm hits the beach, she gets the other survivors to enter the boat for safety, though they seem confused on how she got it and why she's just telling them. The next day, Chase and Brody have a serious argument about what happened between them, and as some of the other survivors think she's always trying to instigate a fight, she goes to the boat to sleep. When she wakes up, she suddenly sees herself getting dragged out, after which she's accused of killing Brody, who's apparently been killed by one of them. Chase pleads her innocence, but they don't listen to her as she then gets knocked out. When she wakes up, she's in a medical facility in a prison where it turns out she had been part of a simulation. The island is not real. She has a lot of questions about the whole process, and she gets the answers from the warden, who tells her she's a criminal, and the program on the island is to give her and the others, who are also criminals, a chance at a second life to see if they'd go back to their old ways despite not remembering anything about their past. He also tells her that Brody obviously found his way back to his crimes and he's now dead, because death in the simulation is death in real life. Chase eventually faces a panel of scientists who have put together the program as they have to make a decision about sending her back. Despite arguing over the subject quite a number of times, they agree to let Chase back in against her wishes, and she also lets the warden know how she feels by slapping him. He gets her beaten up by his guards, and later on, before she's to be prepared for re-entrance into the program, Chase meets one of the members on the panel named Wise. Wise tells Chase of all those who have passed through the program so far, she's the only one who woke up feeling fine. She also says that she thinks the warden has manipulated the program for his own negative agendas. Wise is unable to say more, and Chase is prepared for the process. On her way to the testing center, she escapes and finds her way there, only to see all the bodies of the people on the island in a chamber where they're being held. Before she can do anything, she's seized by the warden's men, with the warden also telling her that things would be so much different when she gets back to the island. She's taken to her own chamber, and after the process starts, she finds herself on the island again. Quite surprisingly, it's almost as if she didn't leave because the others are saying she only passed out for 10 minutes. She tries to explain what's happened to them, but they all think she's hallucinating. Just as they're still trying to understand her, a lady and a guy, both named Bonnie and Clyde respectively, show up and say they also found themselves on the beach, and how they've been staying in the village they found. However, a statement Clyde makes helps Chase realize that they were sent by the warden. Her attempts to convince the others fail again, and even when Bonnie and Clyde seem to blow their cover and reveal that they're there to make sure things are in order, the others still believe something is off with Chase. Clyde tells the group that Chase has been hiding things from them, but she denies it. Soon after, Clyde holds Hayden and stabs her, saying anyone who kills another on the beach will also die, confirming that Hayden has killed Brody, and it was the same thing that also led her to prison. Seeing as Chase still has negative things to say, she is asked to leave, and not long after, Bonnie and Clyde tell the others that they'll soon start remembering the things that led them to prison. Before the duo leave, Chase returns with the medical supplies, leaving the other survivors shocked, especially since it could have been helpful for Donovan. She leaves with the gun, and soon after, Bonnie and Clyde also leave. Not long after, Casey, Cooper, and Moses decide to look for the village Bonnie and Clyde talked about while Blair, Donovan, Taylor, and Mason choose to stay back on the beach. Casey and the guys find the beach, and Blair also continues taking care of Donovan while Mason tries to get them water. Elsewhere, Chase goes to the abandoned hotel she had seen earlier, and gradually, the group start remembering their past. As it turns out, the woman Chase killed in her dream is her mother, and she also appears to Chase inside the building. After the seemingly scary reunion, Chase finds a key that leads to a room that seems to be suspicious. She checks around and eventually finds some documents and pictures, with one of them showing her and Chase together, meaning they knew each other in the real world. For the others, it turns out that Casey had killed her 2 children to get back at her abusive husband. Blair killed several patients because she thought it was best for them. Mason had killed many people at the mall. Taylor robbed a bank with her boyfriend, and in the process, she killed someone. Donovan killed a coworker he liked just because she didn't like him back, and Moses bombed a pipeline to pass the message to the government, killing people in the process, even though it was not his intention. Meanwhile, Cooper learns that Bonnie and Clyde are actually working for someone on the outside, and he goes in search of Chase as he now believes her. When he gets there, Chase shows him the picture she found in order to help him remember his past, and despite finding it hard at first, he remembers that they're a couple, and they had even been in the military together. Elsewhere, Casey and Moses are able to bond after learning of their past, and not long after, they decide to find Chase as she might have been telling the truth after all. Meanwhile, Taylor escapes with the boat Chase found, despite Blair telling her not to. Things take a wrong turn for her and she doesn't get too far, as she soon stops at a nearby island looking bruised all over. She passes out and wakes up to see that her injuries have been bandaged and that there's also chicken soup prepared for her. However, Bonnie and Clyde show up and tell her that the island she is on is the home of a cannibal, and there's also no chicken on the island. Just then, she checks her injured hand and sees that it has actually been chopped off. Back on the beach, Donovan proposes to Blair, but she rejects him as she doesn't understand why he'd do that. Blair then tries to seek help from Mason as she thinks Donovan is obsessed with her, and Mason agrees to not leave them alone together. However, things take a bad turn and Donovan thinks Mason is trying to steal Blair from him, so he kills Mason. Blair finds out just as she discovers she was married to a woman in her past. And after cunningly getting Donovan to believe she wants him, she kills him with a flare Mason had. Back at the control center, the guys on surveillance of the island find out Bonnie and Clyde are in the game and they're trying to alter the outcome. Casey and Moses find Cooper and Chase, but just as they try to be hard on Chase again, Cooper tries to defend herself by threatening Casey and Moses with a gun. Just then, he remembers that he'd actually killed Chase's mom during an argument with her. And by the time he comes back to reality, it turns out he has also shot Moses. Bonnie and Clyde immediately get there with the intention to kill Cooper, but he defends himself with help from Chase as well. In the process, Bonnie gets stabbed, and just as Clyde retaliates by stabbing Chase, he and Bonnie disappear from the simulation. As Chase also drags herself out of the house, she passes out. When Chase wakes up, Weiss is in the room to tell her she's no longer on death row and she'll now be released after Cooper's confession confirms she didn't kill her mother. Chase is surprised to hear that she was on death row, and Weiss tells her that it was the condition that got all of them into the program. Weiss also mentions that she thinks the warden is responsible for the manipulations happening on the island, but there's no proof to get him arrested. Not long after, Chase goes for a series of tests as part of the process for her release. Meanwhile, the warden thinks Chase might put him in trouble if she mentions how he treated her when she faces the group of scientists, which is actually a jury. Before taking drastic action, he decides to speak to her first. When they meet again, he's nicer and he goes straight to the point, saying he didn't know she was innocent and he just believes that the people on death row shouldn't get a second chance. She agrees to leave him out of her statement, but only if she can talk to her husband and confront him on why he chose to frame her. The warden agrees to this and they shake hands. Before Chase faces the jury, Bonnie and Clyde are first, and despite working on the orders from the warden, they say the opposite, choosing to leave out the warden's name. Shortly after, Chase faces them, and she initially leaves out the warden's name, though she eventually can't help but make an attempt to implicate him. He realizes what she's up to and asks the session to go on a break so he could take a call. While on break, he gets a nurse to help him inject Chase with a lethal serum, but Weiss catches them and gets the evidence she needs against them. When the warden faces the jury, he seemingly insinuates that their program has a hidden agenda, and this forces Chase to also ask. The jury points out that they have no other motives aside from offering rehabilitation to criminals. Just then, the warden tells Chase that there's something they're still hiding from her, leaving Chase confused again. Soon after, when she's about to be released, Weiss shows up, and Chase asks about what the warden said. With that, Weiss seeks permission to inject Chase with a serum, and she does. Chase sees that she looks much older. Weiss then tells her she's been in prison for 25 years, and she voluntarily accepted to be part of the program. Chase requests to speak to her husband again to ask why he put her through everything, but Weiss says it's not possible. On her way out, Weiss thanks Chase for playing a role in helping them to improve the program. Following that, Chase is free and she takes a walk headed to the city. Later on, the warden wakes up on the island only to see Casey and Cooper in front of him. He then looks surprised as they welcome him. And that is how it ended. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. And if you would like to give this a watch for yourself and support the movie, we always link it in the description below to save you the trouble. Thanks for watching.